It's my delight to introduce our speaker this morning, Hinda Young. She's going to be telling us a little bit more about what she has done professionally. But what I love about her is her energy and passion that she puts into everything she does, and the things she's thinking about that I think particularly will be impactful on women in leadership. And I just have enjoyed so much our times together. What she shares is always stimulating to me. And so, Hen, just come on up and share with us, and we'll look forward to what you have to say.
All right, well, first of all, thank you for being here today and spending this time with me. I'm really excited about the presentation that I put together, so we'll see how it goes. So I'll just tell you a little bit about myself. I'm an entrepreneur and leadership coach. I work with men and women who are starting endeavors and taking big risks. I get to ride along with them on their entrepreneurial journey. And in that journey, they come face to face with themselves. As they build their business, as they work on their endeavors, they come to face with their own fears, with their own self-limiting beliefs. And at the same time, I also help to get them to think about the things that they want to create, the things that chase them in their sleep and won't let them go. I give them the confidence and the support and the partnership for them to pursue that and to bring that to life. And so that's the work that I do. It actually is built on the past 20 years as a head of human resources. And so I help them build their companies from 0 to 100 employees, funding levels anywhere from an angel funding all the way up to IPO. So my coaching came out of that work because I realized that that's the piece of human resources that I really love the best. And so I feel really blessed that at this point in my life, that this is the work that I get to do, and I get to pour my energies and my focus into it. This is my family. So my husband Larry, we've been married 31 years, and I have a 2.5-year-old granddaughter. She, of course, is the love of my life. Sorry, honey. This is my son-in-law Brian and my daughter Brittany, and then my son Zachary. And then this is a picture of of when my daughter got married about 4 or 5 years ago. It's a picture of my immediate family and then my husband's immediate family. And I love this picture. And the reason why I love this picture is that growing up, it was just me, my mother, my 3 half-siblings, and my stepfather. And I lived in Vietnam for my first 6 years of life, and then we moved to Thailand for a year, and then I was in Okinawa for 6.5 years. And then we came to the United States, and it was always just the 6 of us. I didn't have roots. You know, people talked about grandparents. Well, I had a grandma in Vietnam, but outside of that, I had an aunt and an uncle, but nothing else. You know, I didn't have a legacy of family history. I didn't have a place of where I came from. So it was kind of lonely and displaced. It was like, where are you from? Well, Vietnam, Thailand, Okinawa. My children, in contrast, has grown up with grandparents, great-grandparents, uncles, aunts, cousins, first cousins, third cousins, fourth cousins. And so they have this legacy of who they are, of their family history. And you know what? They have a confidence at their age that I didn't have because they had a place. They had a place of origin. And that is just, it is so rare. And I think a lot of us take it for granted. So I'm here today to talk to you about flow. And I want to talk about flow in the context of helping you think about, ultimately, how did you do this year? And how do you want to do next year? And so let's talk about flow a little bit. Flow is also known as the zone, your sweet spot. You're firing on all cylinders. You are working from your passion well, okay? Flow is a state of operation in which a person performing an activity is fully immersed in a feeling of energized focus, full involvement and enjoyment in the process of the activity. Flow is characterized as full absorption in what you are doing. So when you are in flow, you are optimally creating, and it's effortless. There's less effort when you're working in flow than when you are working against flow. You can create, you can have ideas, you are very productive, the time flies, and you don't feel like that there's a lot of effort involved with it. Now, if we're honest, we don't always work in flow. Sometimes there's just little things that get in the way. The thing about it though is that if we have large chunks of time where we're not working in flow, a lot of times we think it is something that's external. And instead we're working in frustration, right? Or at suboptimal levels. The reality is the things that impede flow isn't from circumstances. It's not from external situations. And so before we proceed to you thinking about, how did you do this year and what you want to do next year, I want to talk to you about the things that impede flow. And I want to tell you why that's important. So we each are here because we have a work or a business. And I think that we forget at times that it consists of two parts. The business part is your service or product packaged and then sold in the marketplace for an economic benefit. That actually is the business. You're not the business. What you are is you are the life force of your business. You are the creative energy. You are the spirit. You are the vision of your business. Your full whole body person, the healthier it is, the more that functions in flow, the greater that you create momentum, which is energy for your business. When your flow is impeded, when your creative force is impeded, the momentum towards your business is not optimal. Okay? And so again, I want to say, your business is two parts, right? One part is the product packaged, sold on the marketplace for an economic benefit. The other part is you, the driving life force of that business. How you are is how this is. It's not the other way around. So you being in flow is actually very important. Okay? So what I'm going to share with you are 8 observations that I made over my 20 years of working with founders and CEOs. They were observations of behaviors that showed up regardless of who the person is, regardless of what they were doing or what their situations or circumstances were. These behaviors showed up consistently in entrepreneurs because they're human. And so I want to share those observations with you. But I'm going to share those observations with you through a case study to illustrate the observations. All right? So that they're more real to you. Okay? In every one of the observations, there's going to be a couple of questions that will help you to reflect on the behavior to see if you notice it. The most important thing is, can you notice if the behavior is in play for you? That is the most important. It's that thing, right? If you can name it, you can deal with it. Right? It's when you don't see it that you don't realize it's in play. So today I want to help you to see what may be in play for you, what may be impeding your flow. And then at the end, we will bring it all back together about how did you do this year and what do you want to do next year. So we're going to do a lot of exploration around flow and the impediments to it, okay? All right. Now, if you're wondering where I'm at, what page I'm at, I am now on page 6. My case study is the Good Samaritan. Now, where we are today in our society and our culture, when you hear the Good Samaritan, it's actually an adjective. It describes somebody who is sympathetic, who cares for another person, right? Who has empathy. And also, I don't know if you know this, but we actually have a law here in the United States called the Good Samaritan law. That law is used to adjudicate when a Good Samaritan helps somebody out, and in helping them out, it creates a worse situation. Or in helping out somebody, they create a new situation that's worse for the person. Or they help the person when the person doesn't want to be helped, but obviously needs help. And so that's how prevalent the adjective of Good Samaritan is in our society. For me, what I'm really going to use it for is the parable, the study. Okay. So my reference for this story is going to be taken out of the English Standard Version Bible, the book of Luke, chapter 10, verses 30 through 35. So let me read that story to you. Jesus replied, "A man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho, and he fell among robbers, who stripped him and beat him and departed, leaving him half dead. Now by chance a priest was going down that road, and when he saw him, he passed by on the other side. So likewise a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by on the other side. But a Samaritan, as he journeyed, came to where he was, and when he saw him, he had compassion. He went to him, bound up his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. Then he set him on his own animal and brought him to an inn and took care of him. And the next day he took out 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper, saying, 'Take care of him, and whatever more you spend, I will repay you when I come back.'" So that's the story of the Good Samaritan. I also look at it and I see it as the entrepreneur's parable. And let me illustrate that to you. So I want us to look at this particular piece of the story. Now by chance a priest was going down that road, and when he saw him, he passed by on the other side. So likewise a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by on the other side. But a Samaritan, as he journeyed, came to where he was, and when he saw him, had compassion. So you have 3 individuals that came upon the situation. You had a priest and a Levite. Back in the day, they were the most educated people. They were formally educated, they lived a rigorous, disciplined life, and they were also well respected in society. So here's a situation. These 2 authorities of society walked by, took a look at it, and decided, not a good situation, and they passed by. The Samaritan comes by and he takes a look and he stops and he has a completely different response. And his response is compassion. So here's the first observation. I call it differentiation centered. When I work with entrepreneurs, founders, CEOs, they succeed because they see the world very differently. You bring the product that you bring, you have the ideas that you have, because you see the world differently than anybody else. An entrepreneur, once the entrepreneur tries to see the world and be normal, they stop being creative. They lose their edge. They lose their competitiveness. So my question to you is this: how are you different? How have you built on this difference? How are you stifling your difference? You are doing what you're doing because you see the world differently. The moment that you doubt that gift, you hamper yourself. You impede your flow. The next observation. The priest looked at the situation and was triggered. He's a holy man. He can't be involved in a situation that takes him from a state of holy to unholiness. He keeps walking by. The Levite is a priest also, but he also has some cultural limitations. He takes a look at it and says, I can't touch that person because he's culturally outside of my realm. He's walking by. The Samaritan looks at it. Again, he's triggered by compassion. He responds. Every one of you have triggers in your work. What is your belief underneath that trigger? And how are these beliefs taking you off course? How are these beliefs really turning an opportunity into a challenge for you? So what triggers do you have? What are your underlying beliefs in these triggers? And how are they taking you off course? Are you missing an opportunity there? The final observation for this passage is called Unmaking. Each of us are here today from another place. You're either here from a previous job and you're now an entrepreneur, or you're an entrepreneur in a business that has been long-standing and you have ridden different financial ups and downs, different cycles in your business. Are you still making decisions and seeing things through old perspectives? Do you need to unmake performance measures that no longer apply? Do you need to unmake expectations, criteria, context, perceived failures and successes that really have nothing to do with what you're doing today? If you allow yourself to unmake all these past things, you actually make room for future definitions, future perspectives and growth, future opportunities. So my question to you is this: what unmaking should you allow? The next piece that I want us to look at. He went to him, the Samaritan, and bound up his wounds, pouring oil and wine. Then he set him on his own animal and brought him to an inn and took care of him. Think about this. Do you travel with oil and wine? I would like to, but no. So what is the occasion that this man, the Samaritan, would be traveling with oil and wine? My guess is that he was probably a merchant of oil and wine, right? It was his life to sell oil and wine. If I was going to sell oil and wine, I would know recipes, I would know food pairings, I would know all of that, right? How would I know to pour it on a man who is hurt? To pour wine on as a disinfectant and wine and oil as a salve? How would I know that? Here's my next observation. Tools versus templates. Tools are implements that facilitates an outcome. Example, talents, gifts, and skills. A versatility and customization in application. The thought is, I am capable, I can figure it out. Templates are patterns, molds, and models. Examples, forms and processes. One size fits all. I've done this before, and I can repeat it here. The illustration of the Good Samaritan is that he had tools. He had oil and wine, and he looked at the situation and he said, I'm going to customize the application. I am going to use the wine to disinfect this man. I'm going to use the oil to salve and start the healing process, right? If it was a different situation, perhaps he would have used a template. I have a Band-Aid. I have bandages. I'm just going to put the Band-Aid on, I'm going to put the bandages on. That's a template situation. The question of tools and templates is this: are you using the right thing? Are you a small business and you're trying to use templates and just put the same thing ka-chunk, 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 ka-chunk over everything, when really what you need is to have clients and build your client base, and maybe every client needs a little bit of specialization, and as a small company you can afford to do that? Or are you a growing company and you can't afford anymore to do customization because it's too expensive? Are you using the right one? Just because you're successful with one It doesn't mean it's successful now, in this context, in the clients that you have. So I invite you to think about that. Are you using tools when you need to use templates? Are you using templates when you need to use tools? Next observation. Learning is iterative and concentric. I am sure that this Samaritan, in learning to use the oil and the wine, right, that he somewhere had some lessons about this. And unless he embraced the lessons, he wasn't going to have this flexibility. He wasn't going to have this expansive way of thinking, right? And so the thing about learning is that it's iterative. It comes back around, right? Learning is iterative. It comes back around, and it's concentric. And what that means is this. It starts small, the lesson that you need to learn. And maybe it comes back around, it's small, and you're going to ignore it because really you can just dismiss it. And then it comes back around again. And now it consumes half your life. It shows up all the time. And then you ignore it, and it comes back, and it's bigger. And now it involves you, it involves your staff, it involves all of your company. Because you don't want to embrace the learning. Right? So my question to you is this. What lesson keeps coming back around? What will the lesson consume the next time it comes around? And if you're resisting, what is in your comfort box? I had a client that wanted to be an entrepreneur, really bad. But he felt that in order to be a really good entrepreneur, he had to understand the life cycle of a product. So he became a product manager for a major company. Hates the job. Hates the job. Still wants to be an entrepreneur. But he won't leave the job. He hates the job. So I said to him one day, do you realize that? Do you realize you hate your job, and you want to be an entrepreneur, but you do everything to not be an entrepreneur? So should we shift? And not talk about entrepreneurism, but maybe talk about how you can succeed and enjoy your job. He sat quiet, and he said, comfort. I said, okay, I'm lost. He said, I'm comfortable here. I have comfort against the risk if I stay where I'm at. So if you're not embracing the learning that knocks at your door, that you run into constantly, my question to you is this: what's in your comfort box? Because the learning won't leave you. And what you are choosing is what's in your comfort box instead of the learning that you need to have. Okay. And the next day he took out 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper, saying, take care of him, and whatever more you spend, I will repay you when I come back. The next observation is business versus strategic. Busy versus strategic. Busy, having a great deal to do, keeping occupied. Satisfying checklist activities. Safe and easier, autopilot. Strategic, carefully designed or planned activity to serve a particular purpose or advantage. Requires planning, making tough decisions, requires reality checking. Where do you spend the majority of your time? And if it's in being busy, what are you avoiding? The Samaritan was headed somewhere. He's a merchant of wine and oil. He had a destination. This was a regular route for him, right? He saw something that no one else saw. He responded to it, and he continued on his journey. He didn't get sidetracked. He kept to his strategy. He had a city to go to. He had people to sell to. So there are times for being busy, but too many of us get caught up in the busy and we don't think about the strategic. So one of the biggest things that I encounter in my coaching, because all of these observations that I had in HR, surprisingly or not, it is what I end up coaching in my clients. So one of the biggest things about the busy is this. If you are in a place where you don't have time, where you are becoming a workaholic, or where if you're a workaholic, you're feeding that, the biggest signal is that you're in busy and you're not in strategic. So check that. If you're not able to manage your time, you're in busy. And so then the question is, what are you avoiding? The next piece is relationships. Fuel or kryptonite for you. So if you notice, he says to the innkeeper, here's some money, take care of him. When I come back, I'll take care of the rest of the bill. You can only do that if you have a relationship. He had built that relationship before he needed it, right? So he had a relationship. So I want to ask you, which relationships require a lot of your time? Is it a fuel, a source of energy, provides forward movement for you? Or is it kryptonite, zaps your strength and weakens you? This is the place where a lot of entrepreneurs struggle because they have people that they know help them to get where they are, and it's hard for them to form new relationships or to expand their circle because they don't want to be disloyal to the people that they have met and has helped them to get there. My message to you is not to put those people on the roadside. My message to you is to be wise with your time, to be wise with your relationships, and to understand that above all else, whatever wisdom that you hear, relationships will make or break you. If you want to, if you have a situation with a major client in town who knows everybody in town, if you want a solid relationship with them, you need to have relationships with other people that can speak well of you to them. If your business is down and you don't have solid relationships in the community, you're not going to have the resources to keep you moving forward when your business is at its low ebb. If you don't have relationships and you are going through something very difficult, you don't have the community that will lift you up and buoy you and give you hope. In my 20 years of HR and the research that I'm doing about a very specific area of women leaders, the word relationship comes up continually. So this whole question of fuel or kryptonite, I didn't come to it lightly. It is literally, relationships are your fuel or your kryptonite. The last piece is decisions. The Samaritan, see, the thing is this, and before I start, let me say this. We believe decisions is something like this. If I find the right decisions for my business, things are going to turn over and ta-da, I've arrived. That's not how decisions work. Decisions are an aggregate of small steps. And sometimes we're not intentional, and sometimes we're in denial about those small steps that we're taking. For the Samaritan, that small step started when he viewed the situation and he saw something different and he had compassion. That was the first small step. The second small step is when he bound up that man. And then the third step was when he took the man to the inn. And then the fourth step was when he paid for that man's recovery. There was not a big, ta-da, I'm going to take care of this guy, I'm going to bring him to the inn. It was one small step at a time. If you think about the big places that you've arrived at, I guarantee you're going to realize that they were small steps that then aggregated into a big change. So my question to you is this: where are your small steps leading you? And if the trajectory isn't changed, what is your destination? Is it to your intended location? Or are you in denial? Or are you being busy versus strategic? So let's get to the bottom line. 3 simple questions. So I've walked you through the things that impede flow. I feel a little guilty because I know that what I wrote in the brochure made it sound like this was going to be an easy lunch thing, But instead you show up and I take out, the drilling gear and I'm jackhammering at you and peeling back your layers and stuff. I do apologize. But I have to admit I enjoy it. So what you get to do is you get to take home this handout, look at those questions again, see what resonates with you, and then answer these 3 questions. What do I want to continue to do in 2017? What do I want to stop doing in 2017? And what new thing do I want to try in 2017? So look at those 8 observations and the questions that go with them, and then answer these 3 very simple questions. And if you do that, if you put in some time to do that, I guarantee you're going to optimize your flow, because that's the way it works. And here's the way you can check the theory of flow. Make a notation of first Q, 1Q, 2Q, 3Q, 4Q, the 4 quarters of this year. And then I want you to just very quickly, off the top of your head, put down what is the percentage of flow for those quarters. And then I want you to check your revenue to see if your revenue correlates with the percentage of flow that you were in for that quarter. So that's a good way to check for yourself to see if it really works. My final thought for you is this: success is not linear. Let me prove it to you. To get ideas, you have to feed inspiration. What does that mean to you? It doesn't mean sitting down and doing a column of numbers. Although Nancy's brilliant at that. It could be skiing. It could be drawing. It could be having your favorite meal. It's not, it's not rational or logical. To have direction, you got to listen to your heart, your passion, and your gut. Luck is preparation plus opportunity times unpredictability. Insight, foresight, seeing around corners, failure plus success times repetition. And relationships is people plus investments. And I did this to prove to you that that part of you, the life force of your business that creates momentum, the vision, the creative spirit that comes from you, it's all of this, right? So how you are is how your business is going to be. And it doesn't matter whether you're a solopreneur or whether you have an enterprise with employees. How you are is how your business is going to be. So keep that in mind when you think that the impediments to your flow, the impediments to your creativity doesn't matter. So I have, I think, a couple minutes left if anybody has any questions.
About 1 minute.
I have 1 minute. Yes, sir?
In your relationship section there, would you consider your primary relationship with yourself?
That's a very good question. You must be a coach or a metaphysical philosopher, otherwise you wouldn't ask that question. I have a bias, I will tell you right up front. My bias says that I'm a Christian. I come to my faith when I was 7 years old. God has brought me through a lot of things, and to me, my primary relationship is with God. For me, I believe that without God, you would have, I wouldn't be standing here. I wouldn't have the joys, the successes, and the failures that allow me to be up here. So for me, that's my primary relationship. But good question, thank you. Anybody else? Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.